Hi there. I thought I would continue sharing about what happened on November 20th, which was a major alchemical portal that my astrologer had defined. It just so happened to have this reading that I did with someone. And the significance of that date for me was it was basically Moon Lilith was present. So that's truth revelation. And essentially, it was meant to be like a major alchemical portal where Mercury was Kazemi, which is at the heart of the sun. So its consciousness and mind become one, and the truth is revealed. And then Black Moon Lilith makes that the shadow unveiling and the truth revelation and so on. So essentially, that was what it was meant to be, all in preparation for my trip to Peru, which is I'm leaving on Thursday, on December 4th, and then I'll be there until the 21st. And that's where I'm going to be doing 8 ayahuasca journeys, or Noya Rao is actually the dieta. Noya Rao is the tree in Avatar, the bioluminescent tree. That's Noya Rao. There's only a few of those left in Peru, and there's even questions about whether they still exist. But I'll be doing a Noya Rao dieta. So Noya Rao is that form of like plant medicine. It's like an ayahuasca forms a vine from the tree, and it's considered the highest feminine celestial frequency. And they often say that people who are moving down the path of like healers or guides and so on are drawn to it. And there was multiple people that had recommended, including one of the guides at a journey that I did that kind of led me start to explore it, and then a series of synchronicities of meeting people that never having heard even the term Noya Rao until then. And then suddenly hearing it in multiple places all at once, I knew that was where I was supposed to go. So I ended up signing up, and that starts, so I leave on the 4th, it starts on the 7th. And that's actually, astrologically, apparently, that's timed with Fucus, which is a 13th sign. And it's all going to be basically, let me find it, and I'll share it with you. It's meant to be, like, I'll be transmuting from carbon to crystalline, which is what our fascia is made of. And during the journey, Venus is on Sirius, which is inner midwife energy. So the truth unveiling, unexpected windfalls. I'll just be much more of myself. It'll be Scorpio alchemy and metamorphosis. So that's what's going to, we'll see what happens there. I'll share when I get back. But on the November 20th, I did want to share what happened in the journey and the reading that we did. So essentially, it was similar to the intuitive readings that I do, but it was in this case, like she took me to multiple timelines and asked for my higher self, for my guides to show me these timelines. And so initially where I went was she asked where I was from originally. And immediately like Sirius was shown to me in the 7th dimension. And I was taken to this planet, and it was like a tropical paradise. It was like underground. It was really lush green, but it seemed like this protective almost space. It was really like a paradise. And I remember I was inhaling, it was like restorative, a sanctuary. And I was inhaling what felt like, it was like clouds, but it was almost like clearing and cleansing and like reactivating dying cells and energizing them. So I had this image, and then I was taken to what looked like a huge library. It was like the Akashic records, I think. And I was walking through it. I was taken to a specific book that like had started to glow on the shelves, and then it just came out and opened. And it was like, and then I was absorbing, it was almost like wisdom or knowledge. I was just absorbing without having to read the book. It reminded me of Discovery of Witches. I don't know if you've got anyone who's seen that. In like the first episode, I think she touches this book, and then like the words all start moving through her, and like she ends up having this knowledge or wisdom. I don't know. It was something like that I felt. And then I saw angels and demons working together, and that kind of this knowledge that like they first whisper to you, the angels, and if you're not listening, then the demons come in and they create a crisis. But they're actually all divine beings working together. So I could see some of them in the library, like in this Akashic record and so on. It was this kind of homecoming, accessing this planetary like vision where I could feel the contrast between the Earth's heaviness and density and kind of the lightness of this home planet, Sirius, or star. And there was like a remembering of this is where I'm from and a place that I'd forgotten while I've been here. So that was that first timeline that I went to. And then then she took me to a timeline. Asked me to go to a timeline. And the first thing that I was shown was like creation of the earth. It was like that moment. And I saw a number of beings, like there was a bunch of us that were like floating in deep space, like spirits. And we were sending energy, and it was harmonized and synchronized. And it was almost like the evolution of a school. We were in a school, we were learning. We started with small entities or beings, and then come to planets. That's like the thing that we were working on. And it was like the big bang, like there's all this energy. And we were trying to synthesize and harmonize and manage the energy. We were creating it. And messages that were coming to me as this was happening was that this is an experiment to see, can we create planet and sustain life on it, on Earth, and humankind. And that it's been a third or fourth time, I think it was a third time around or fourth time of this experiment. had failed multiple times before. So now we were trying it again. And the message or feeling out was like, the energy is going awry again. And so I was going to be on the planet along with a number of other beings to help redirect the energy so that we could hopefully sustain life and this energy on the planet, humans on the planet. This was this knowledge that I was hearing or feeling. So that was the first scene. Then we go to a second timeline. I'm going to just keep track here so I don't forget anything. So in the second timeline, I was suddenly taken to a really stark land. It was sands and then a little bit of water. I felt like I could see lava flowing into or steaming into the waters, and there was hot springs, and it was deathly silent, like nothing existed. And what I was seeing were basically trying to inject consciousness, the sparks of life, with the elements as part of this experiment to see, can we create life on Earth? What are the conditions, and how do we mix the elements with consciousness to create it? And it's got to be the right temperature and the right timing and the right amount. And it was like, this is what part of the learning and the evolution and so on. And then I was suddenly one of these beings, like I was almost like in it to see, can it sustain? And it was like I was on the edge of existence. And it was very uncomfortable, actually. I couldn't breathe too heavily because then I would die. I was on the edge of death, edge of an abyss. And it was like showing me how life was so fragile. We were trying to figure out how to like sustain life. So it started in this really delicate, almost like when you're starting a fire from scratch. You're waiting for the embers, and then you got to nurture it so that it grows. It was like that feeling. But it was like scary and dark and existential. It felt like survival. Almost like where the feeling of survival comes from for humankind is like from this moment. And the fear of death, essentially. So that was that scene that I saw. And it was like the creature, it was like a reptilian kind of creature. So this kind of forwarded when I saw this. It fast forwarded, and they showed me how we created like artificial intelligence into human, sentient. We made it sentient. And it was a sophisticated human body, highly sophisticated instrument. We were really proud of our ability to create humans, these beautiful beings. But what ended up happening was, it's because of the things that were happening on Earth and the way that the energy was used and so on, a lot of these capabilities had gone dormant in the human. And so now it was a time of reactivating and the energy shifting such that those could come to the surface. So humans like finding their gifts and their capabilities. That was what I was basically seeing. And what I also saw was that there was a number of individuals, including myself and my business partner and others, that were plugging into what looked like a light network across the planet. It was like a grid. And it was almost like when we cleared and became a pillar of light, could hold the frequencies, the higher frequencies on the Earth, we would plug in, like light up, almost like a beacon of light or like a lighthouse, light up, and then plug into this network across the planet. And there were beings all across the planet plugging in as they reach these high frequencies. And then it becomes a light network across the planet, which is also meant to help shift the energy and the frequency of humans and the planet itself towards these high frequencies that we're moving towards. Another thing that I saw was I saw myself or other celestial beings standing in front of the human, okay, these highly sophisticated intelligence that we created, and was fine-tuning it for the next level of evolution. So it was like I was standing in front and I could see the mirrors of the chakras, my chakras and the being chakras or the human. And it was like sending really subtle amounts of energy and clearing and sending energy in a really sophisticated way, like more refined way across the 7 chakras to take humans to the next level of evolution of this intelligence, essentially. Okay, and so it was really fascinating and really cool. And then I was taken to another timeline, to 200 years ahead, where it was like showing me like what the world would look like at that point. And it was like we communicated telepathically. It was lush. It looked like a paradise. And it was like there was like abundance of these like fruit. It would look like Eden, maybe. But it was like fruit that was like lush and like dripping from the trees kind of thing, and like the juices. And then it was like humans could communicate telepathically, and there was all this lightness and beauty. And they looked like gods and goddesses that lived on Earth. And it looked like it was almost a mirror of the spirit world. Almost. It was almost like the technology had evolved so much, so refined that you could almost not tell the difference between the spirit world and the human world or the Earth and these humans. And then I saw scenes of the way ideas would move. So it would be like you had people, and then it was like what looked almost like a beach ball. Like it would fly up in the air, an idea would spark, and it would start to grow, and people would play with it. So they would be adding to it and iterating and so on, and it would go from person to person, kind of like what a beach ball would go. And then every so often it would touch a spot of darkness, someone who was going through a dark moment, and it would fall in, and it almost looked like Einstein's theory of relativity, where you see the time space like relativity moving, like almost like waves, the fabric of time. So I saw that go down into the earth, and everyone, it was like in the movie Avatar, everyone's holding hands. It's for those who've seen it, and then it's like everything goes dark, and you could see the movement of the energy across the. So I could see that everything went dark, really darker, until it was pitch black where this person was, and almost like imploded into the earth, caved into the earth. And then it just stayed there, and everybody was like holding space and nurturing, holding, supporting this person that was in this darkness. And then it was like, it came to like pure stillness, like touching source energy almost. And then I would see like a little bud, like a little plant, the bud of a plant starting to grow. And then suddenly it would blossom into this gorgeous, beautiful flower, this person that was like blooming. Then everything would light up again. And then land came back up again, and the ball would come back out with an idea. And it was like the way we were nurturing ideas and growing them and using darkness and light, it was just stunning. I can't really justify it with words because it's hard to explain in words, but this is what I was like experiencing in this. So it was basically like what felt like heaven on earth, like the spirit world on the earth plane. So anyway, that was incredible, this beautiful vision with all this lightness and playfulness. Okay, and then I was taken to a fourth timeline where it was 3 years in advance. And I was walking down a path, and she asked me to pick one of 3 doors, and I picked a door. She said, "What number is it?" And it was 3. It was like 3 years ahead, 3 years ahead in time. And I felt like I walked in, like when you see those celebrities that have dressing rooms, it looked like a door like that. It was glittery or whatever. Open the door. Instead of just going through the dressing room, I went past that into the backstage of a huge stadium. And I was backstage, and there were a bunch of people backstage. And there was all this buzz and movement and logistics and all this stuff. And the next thing I saw, I was on the stage with a handful of people. And there was like hundreds of thousands of people in this massive stadium. And then basically, we were sending energy waves to the crowd through our hands. And I would see the wave moving of light through the crowd, and then it would get stuck somewhere on some person. And then what I saw was the floor was like glass. It looked like glass, and there was all these sensors. And it was very advanced technology, but all these sensors that could sense what was going on with everyone and where the energy was moving. But it would stop there. And then we were showing them all these different ways to unblock the individual and the energy movement. So in one path, the people with the least resistance, with the highest frequency, let's say, the least resistance, it would move along those individuals from me, like to them, through them, to that person. And then it would light that person up and unblock them with that power of energy. In another place, we would show them how everybody around them would amplify their frequency and energy and then almost dissolve this person's blocks from the darkness to light. And then it would move. And so it was moving from all of us on the stage across the crowd. The waves were all moving. And it was going out to these hundreds of thousands of people. And then what I could see was they were all going out, these individuals, almost like train the trainer. They were all going out to their communities and their villages and their organizations and then doing the same kind of things we were doing as they learned from us. And I could see it spreading across the planet, the light. And it was a scene I had 30 years back that came back to me, which is I was flying over the planet, the Earth, with a handful of others. There were like some people really famous. Some were people that just worked with me. And we were all flying, holding hands, flying over the planet. And it was dark. The Earth was dark. And it was, as we were flying over it, like little pins lighting up, almost like you see when lights coming on the Earth far below. Started happening. It was almost like the lights were spreading across the earth. And then I think I missed one. One thing that I saw in there, I don't remember if I saw it before or after these future scenes or whatever, but I saw this time of darkness. I think it might have been between the 3 and the 200 years. I saw this scene where it was like Lord of the Rings, where the trees, the really big trees, those of you who've seen it, it's like there's this great flood, and these trees, these massive, magnificent, majestic trees are walking, and people are on them, like a couple of people are on them, like to be safe or whatever, but they're walking across this like great flood. They're the ones that survive. And I suddenly had an image of me and some of the others being like those trees, where there was a massive flood, like it was a tsunami of darkness and a flood that came over the earth. And all of these intelligence, like the humans that were like these advanced technologies, they all fell, they drowned. And then only some of them got up and were flickering back on, like their chest, their hearts were flickering back on. It was almost like the technology that was advanced enough and high frequency enough to survive the darkness were the ones that were going to be inhabiting the earth. So this was the reading, which was absolutely fascinating. Since then, my business partner actually recommended Ancient Apocalypse, which I just started watching the documentary of. And it's so resonant. I didn't know about some great flood like in our history, but a lot of cultures talk about the Great Flood and how it wiped out all but a handful of humans, and then what they were taught and how their civilization rebirthed. I didn't feel like it was like only a handful this time. I thought it was a lot more. And it was helping people through that, but that was a scene that I saw. And then last night, the reason I decided to do this video, I was watching this video with David Clements and Pam Gregory, and he's talking about how we're at the precipice of great unfolding and how it's going to be pure delight and joy. But we're going to need to go through darkness first and shed waves of purging, shed layers and layers. And that if you're feeling down and if you're feeling stressed and things are coming up for you that are really dark, there's a reason for that. That as we get through it and we become more crystalline, he actually used that term, then we would essentially be able to move to this lightness. And he even said, there's so much of what I've said before, which is incredible, that my feeling is that between now and mid-February, there's a lot of clearing and purging of low vibrational energy because the energy of the planet is rising. Divine feminine is rising in all of us, men and women. It's rising. And as it rises, all the darkness is low frequency has to come up and out. So those that are able to transmute the energy will stay on the planet. And those that are unable or unwilling will have to go to another planet. They'll perish or they'll leave to go to other places that are lower frequency. And I believe that in mid-February, something I've been feeling is I feel like it's going to be a rocket launch. And what we do and what's happening on the planet. And like in mid-February, there's a whole bunch of things I think I mentioned in the previous video too happening. There's like the Chinese New Year, which is around Feb 17th, I think. And that goes from the year of the snake, which is all about shedding skins, to the year of the fire horse, which is all about dynamics, fireworks, change, transformation. Uranus is in Taurus, which is Uranus is the wrecking ball, like massive shifts and shattering of beliefs or situations. Good or bad, it could be windfalls too, and into Taurus, which is the body. So massive shifts, I think, that will be happening through the body. Then there's like mind-body recalibrations that are happening. I don't remember which planetary alignments are happening between now and mid-January in preparation for this. And then April, Uranus is moving into Gemini. The last time that happened was Civil War, Revolution, and World War II. Massive upheaval across humanity. And prior to that, I'll be doing, as coincidences go, 1 week silent retreat with Thomas Hubel. And I'll be going to India, hopefully, for 2 weeks to meditate in Rishikesh and help us move through this transition. So in the window between them is when we plan on doing another cohort for those of you that might be interested, because I think it's going to be a really powerful, really potent time for the energy and what we're moving through. And so just to help people move through that and uncover their gifts and capabilities and shed more of these layers so that they can join us and help build a new world. So there's a lot that's coming. It's very exciting. Can't wait to see what happens. And my next one's going to be either in Peru, if I have a chance to record it, or when I get back. Thanks. Lots of love.